Hey, Jim.
Go on, boss.
And let's call this meeting to order. We'll begin with a moment of silence and followed by the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we will begin with public comment. The commission requests that comments be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes for each person. If anybody has a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. For the last, I'm Larry Ruiz, for the record. The last couple of years I've been working on a project with a renewable energy company. They're the largest renewable energy company in the world. Finally, we met a crossroads and we're at a place where two ways meet. And August 12th is when we have a meeting in St. Louis with these program people. Our past mayor, our commissioners, and along with the chamber and other program people, we talked about this to some extent in Fort Riley, including two of the generals, Colonel Cole and Mr. Williamson in PW. Just recently it dawned on me that, they're talking about downsizing Fort Riley. That may or may not happen. But one of the things to ensure that Fort Riley remains is to have something here that's worth keeping, besides the soldiers and the retirement and their lifestyle after they get out the Army. And my thoughts was to have the first premier renewable energy plant here, located at Fort Riley. There has to be feasibility studies. There has to be R&D. I spoke with Commissioner McAllister about this at one time, Commissioner Sands, I believe Commissioner Landis, and at the time Emeritus Mayor Cecil Axa. I feel strongly about it. There hasn't been any support so far for the last 2 years. I've been financing it out of my pocket and out of the corporation. But another strong point would be that 50% of the energy created from that plant could go toward NBAT, and the timing would be perfect because in 4 or 5 years, NBAT is going to be complete. This Spanish company, actually it's a Spanish company, and King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella financed Christopher Columbus. This could be big. Maybe they'll finance and show some interest in Fort Riley. They work with Arizona Power and other American companies, First Solar, etc., Solandra, the California renewable energy situation where the president had paid up to $1 billion to try to get that off the ground, and it flopped somewhat. But it's up and running, and it's alive and well, the program, as far as these renewable energy initiatives that are mandated through Congress. I know my time is limited, but anyhow, just something to think about. That's going to happen August 12th, and I'll come back with a report of what kind of support we're going to get from that. The really nice thing about this whole program and the project is the government is behind it with PPAs, power purchase banking agreements up to 30 years. It's going to get the interest of a lot of investors where they could put their money instead of putting it into some Ponzi schemes where they're losing 401ks and their life savings and retirement. And it's backed up by the government, no different than SBA, Patriot loans, microloans, guaranteed 501s, 502s, whatever. So it's a really nice program. So far, it's happening in the private sector, but the government wants to do 500 of these plants between now and 2030. They estimate purchasing $30 billion in renewable energy between now and 2030. But just something to think about, and I'll keep everybody updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else? Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will next take care of the consent agenda. Did anybody have any questions on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as described.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as described. Is there any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0. Now, next on our agenda is special presentation for the Breastfeeding Month proclamation.
Hello, I am Danny Holliday, and I work at the Geary County Health Department. I'm the community planner, and I am here on behalf of the Geary County Breastfeeding Coalition and the Geary County WIC Department, which is within the health department. I have here with me law cards for your reference for the breastfeeding law in Kansas, as well as the Junction City Breastfeeding Month proclamation. I'm not sure how this works. Do I need to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay. And if anyone has any questions or needs to talk to me afterwards, then that's fine too.
All right, thank you. The Junction City Breastfeeding Month proclamation. Whereas in Junction City, Breastfeeding Month celebrates Breastfeeding Week, August 1st through the 7th, and promotes breastfeeding and breastfeeding support. And whereas the American Academy of Pediatrics considers breastfeeding to be the ideal method of feeding and nurturing infants. And whereas breast milk is widely acknowledged to be the most complete form of nutrition for infants, and whereas breastfeeding has many benefits for babies, such as reducing risk of obesity, respiratory and ear infections, asthmas, allergies, diarrhea, cancers, sudden infant death syndrome, and less than optimal brain development. And whereas breastfeeding has many benefits for improving maternal health long after the postpartum period, including a reduction in postpartum bleeding, earlier returns to pre-pregnancy weight, reduced risk of premenopausal breast cancer, and reduced risk of osteoporosis. And whereas breastfeeding promotes strong family bonds while providing economical and societal benefits through lowered health care costs, and whereas united effort is needed from business, communities, governmental leaders, and healthcare providers to support breastfeeding, and whereas businesses can ensure that working mothers have an appropriate place and reasonable break time to express their milk, and communities can support existing laws protecting a mother's right to breastfeed her child in any public location. Therefore, I, Michael Ryan, Mayor of Junction City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim August 1st through the 31st, 2014, Breastfeeding Month, and encourage a breastfeeding-friendly culture in this city. In testimony whereof, I've hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the City of Junction City, this 5th day of August 2014.
Should have wrote that in there.
And do you have the seal?
I can go get the seal.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is item A, consideration of the 2013 audit. No, I'm
No,
wrong.
public hearing first.
Excuse me, Mark. I thought you just dressed up because you wanted to see us.
I did.
We'll have a public hearing to consider condemnation of property at 518 West Third.
Mayor, Commissioners,
It's already running. It'll just run through.
I can't see him.
Yeah,
No, sir.
It takes about 30 seconds.
Got
yeah,
it.
there it
got
is.
Thank you. There hasn't been any updates to bring you on this. I haven't talked to the owners. I go by there at least once every couple of days. I see the power's still on, but I haven't seen sight of them at all. Haven't talked to them. Staff's recommendation is to move forward with the condemnation and allow them the 120 days by the state law, and then deal with it then if they haven't done anything at all. I don't foresee them doing anything with this property. I really don't. I've kind of been on them for a couple of years to do something, and they were gonna do this, and they moved out to Riverbend, and I don't know where they're living now. I have no idea, but they've had no contact with our office at all.
And there isn't any forwarding address through the postal system?
Still goes to that address. Still goes to that address, Mayor. And it will till this whole thing is resolved. All the mail will, unless they change it. So, and as you see from the pictures, this is the state it's still in today, other than we've done some blight mowings and cleaning up limbs and bicycle parts, things like that. So it's unfortunate, but we have to do what we have to.
What is the will of the commission?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2763 to give the property owners 120 days by law to repair or remove the structure at 518 West Third. Do we have to close the public hearing first and then do that?
Oh, yes, we do.
What's that?
See if there are any other,
Hey, is there anybody here to speak
Got
to the
carried
issue?
away.
This is a public hearing.
I'm sorry. I should have told you. There's no one here on behalf of the property, to my knowledge.
well, anyone else from the public.
Anybody from the audience want to speak to this issue?
You can
Thank you.
close the public
I'll
hearing.
close the public hearing, and now I'll ask for the will of the commission.
Now, I move to approve Resolution 2763 to give the property owners 120 days by law to repair or remove the structure at 518 West Third.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2763. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we will order business is consideration of the 2013 audit.
I'll introduce you, Sean. As required annually, the City of Junction City is to complete an audit. We entered into a contract, again, with Meisenhauser and Company to perform that audit. With us today is Sean Gordon to answer any questions regarding the audit. I just wanted to do a quick comparison just to emphasize with the audit. If you read the audits and do comparisons from year to year, if you go to page 10 of the audit, and it talks about total net position of the city. When Mr. Vernon and I came here in 2010, the total net position was $5,658,622. Now net position is $9,633,650. You go to page 13, the net position of government activities was a negative $2,970,752. It now stands at $10,357,816. You go to page 17 of the audit. Net fund balance ending in 2010 was $1,006,000. It now stands at $5 million plus. You go to page 18. Net position fund ending balance for the capital improvement fund was a negative $1.2 million. Now stands at ending balance of $686,000. And that kind of gives you just a summary of how hard the staff has worked to benefit this community and to get our act together in our finances, and to show you that we work hard every day to make sure that we work with the auditors to improve our policies, our positions, our accountability, all of the things that we need to do in the audit. As far as staff comment in regards to the 3 audit, what's called, what is it called? Recommendations, the 3 recommendations that the auditor had, 2 of them we have, believe, met their concerns, and the only, with the court and with, let's see, the court and segregation of duties and municipal court. The only thing that we need further clarification from the auditors is on the year-end audit adjustments. We're not, Jolene and I were unclear of what they were asking us. We're going to have further conversations. As I emailed him, we are teachable. You need to tell us what it is you want us to do, and we'll learn to do it. So we are going to attack that as well. And as compared to the 19 significant write-ups from the very first audit that we had in 2011, then we've come a long ways. And so it is our honor to work with them, and I take the auditing part of function of the finance position very seriously because I like audits. I like to know where we stand. I like to know what improvements we can make, and whatever they give us for recommendations, we are going to work towards making those improvements. Leave then the floor for Sean to answer any questions regarding the audit and myself. Go ahead.
Good evening. As Cheryl said, my name is Sean Gordon with Mize & Company. I was the auditor in charge of the 2013 audit. We can kind of go through the audit report if you'd like, but I just want to make one point to you, and that's pages 1 and 2. That's the audit report, and that's where we issue opinions on the audit. And for the city's financials, we issued the highest and cleanest opinion that we could under state and United States law, which is an unmodified opinion. So that just goes to show how good of a financial position and good management that your city is under.
Do you have any question of us regards the audit?
I'll have a couple. Just a second.
It's a lot better than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
it is.
started.
And this may be too minute to bring up here, but on page 194, it says we had no money for the MAC allocated or for 2013 year. I don't, like I said, it's a long report and it had a lot of numbers.
Right.
But I don't know what page that is of your report, but hang on a second, I'll get that for
Okay.
you.
It might be page 50.
It might be here. We're stuck for the moment.
I think that's correct.
It's a good-sized packet.
Combining balance sheet.
It looks like it,
Here we go.
page before 50.
Special revenue.
Yeah, but for 2013, I had nothing for the MAC, and I know we allocated something for the MAC, and I don't know if that was an expense or a revenue.
The reason that MAC still shows on this audit as a separate fund is because we hadn't given them direct orders to close them out. They now have closed out the independent fund. Okay, we now have that as part of the general fund. So after this year, you will no longer see the MAC listed as an independent fund because we have now, under this audit, completely closed out Spin City, MAC, there's one other. Yeah, which other? Utility charges.
Yes.
Utility charges.
Correct.
Another action that we took on this audit, so that you're aware of, in the 88 fund, we have monies that are set aside for Libya Farms that was paid into that fund for sidewalk improvements for the future when those lots got developed. That is technically not our money. So I've asked them to transfer it to trust and agency, and they have through this audit. You'll see that now in this audit process. There's now a trust and agency fund with money in it. And that is because that is not our money. It never was our money. And that gets transferred over into trust and agency. And it's to be used for a specific purpose for those properties.
Who decides?
Um,
Decides.
When they take out a building permit and they
No,
build the property and we reimburse them for the sidewalks.
When you talked
construction.
about how the money is to be used, who decides how
It
that
was
money-
done by a development agreement. Jolene has tracked the money. She has this tracking of it, so she knows what money is owed in there. That's to be set aside in the trust and agency. We hadn't reached the amount yet, but in 2014, we did get another deposit of money, and we have the full amount now that'll eventually be in the trust and agency fund, and that's where it sets. Right now, there is currently only $1,422 in the trust agency fund, which is money that was set aside for Helen Park, which I have since learned it's not really the appropriate place for the Helen Park money because we will benefit from that. So we'll, unfortunately, we'll be transferring that to a different fund so that it's in the proper fund. Because trust and agency, as I learned through this process, was that trust and agency is money that's really not ours. And we will not benefit.
You're just holding it.
Yeah, we're just holding it. We don't benefit from it. We don't have a direct benefit from it. The Helen Park money is really going to be set up as a liability fund within the general fund so that it doesn't get spent for any other purpose but the Helen Park, which we discussed with them, and that's how we'll set that up. But we'll get that all corrected.
Okay. On page 70 of your report, it's page 217. I looked at the chart, and it may have been that I looked at it for too long. What is that report or that chart trying to tell us? I mean,
The net position over 10 years.
uh-huh. So significant, what should I take away from that chart?
What page was that, Jim?
217.
Yeah, it's your overall net worth at each year end. So you can follow each year and see what your total government expenses were in the first set of information and
Okay.
and all your revenues, and then down towards the bottom is your ending value at year end.
So it looks like we almost tripled. Is that correct? From 2004, where it was 24 million, to where we're at the end at 66 million?
Right, for all
Correct.
total primary government.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. I thought that's what it was trying to say, but I said I wanted to bring it up to be sure.
Yes.
All right, and I think I have one more, but I'm not gonna, if it's small, I'll let it go.
Right.
I'll move to approve the 2013 city audit as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 2013 city audit as presented. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I got it, but I'll take it up offline. I'll get you afterwards.
Commissioner Landis, did you have anything else? No. I have a motion and a second to approve the audit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Just put it on Emma. Yeah. Okay. Just so you're aware, then the city posts on the federal website for Emma, it's called Emma, for all the bondholders and financial institutions and have copies of the audit. We post the audit on the website so that citizens have easy access to it at any time. And should you have any other further questions, if I don't know the answers, I can email Sean at any time because they're really on contract year-round for answering questions. And if you have any further questions, do not hesitate to ask because we are going to find the appropriate answer for you.
I can tell you it was very difficult
It's difficult reading.
reading in the amount of time allotted, but the summary was very good. The summary was very good, and it reflected very good kudos on the city and city staff. Thank you.
I was curious, how many folks did you have working on this? Because that's a lot of data.
It is a lot of data. We had 5 auditors here, and then we also have a manager and a shareholder that did the final review. So 7 people total.
You kind of have a framework for it to fit into, or you actually built this from scratch?
We use information from last year.
Yeah.
Exactly, to go off that.
And we partner on the statistical section. I do
Yes.
about 2/3 of it, and they do 1/3 of it. They do the financial third, and I do all of the statistical tracking year to year. So it's a combination on the statistical section. Of course, we have to write the management letter and the management summary. We write that. So it's a combined effort. But all of the whole purpose of the audit is that you have an independent agency outside telling you a review of the financials. The idea is that they match up with what we have on record, so that that you know that staff is doing their job.
And it explained what the funds were. That was one
Yes.
thing that was really good.
Yes.
So anyone looking at it, layman can look at that and say, now I know what we're talking about. And I appreciate that being in there.
Well, if you notice, the structure goes also GAAP as well as other reports that make it simpler to read. There's a dual purpose for that. I don't know if, when it started, but it was years ago when it started that they wanted to start seeing the audits in GAAP form so that it is more like the professional business world. So that the businessmen can understand what the audits look like because they're used to reading it one way. If we were doing this on a strictly cash basis law, which is all you're required to in Kansas to do, this audit would look totally different. I've been in cities that we did it strictly cash basis and only did our enterprise funds under GAAP. Because under enterprise funds, you have to do it under GAAP. But this one is done based on GAAP.
Are we going to have any problems with the checking every check, though, that goes out if we don't use checks, or are we accounting for
We
credit card?
account for everything.
Okay. And we're pretty much doing that now, though, aren't we?
What you started seeing not 2 meetings ago was the checks in order,
Yeah.
orders of how they're issued, and that was at their request. I've done it both ways in cities, but he's not the first auditor I've had to ask for you to see it in check order, and the purpose for that is you're supposed to check to see is there a gap missing, and if there is, there better be a good reason.
Correct.
Okay. I appreciate it. It was good.
Yeah, so we'll start doing it both ways. Most commissioners want to see it by department because you want to know where the money was spent by department. So we'll give it to you both ways. That way we've pleased the auditors and we've pleased what most commissioners like to see, and that's by department.
That does make it easier for us when we're looking at a department to have
Yes.
all their stuff together.
Well, that's how you relate to it. They're wanting accountability.
But the
Accountability
mechanical checks make
is
sense
really
too.
important
Yes.
for you to know too, and that's why you'll see, we're just going to finally bite the bullet on the N-code stuff and pay for the $5,000 change on the N-code so that you get the payroll stuff. We have tried every report and imaginable trying to get the data out of N-code ourselves. It's not working, so we're going to have to bite the bullet, pay for N-code to create the report for us that is going to satisfy the auditors, but more importantly, so that you see the cost of each employee, of what you're paying for on each employee, each pay period. It's only the right thing to do, and so we'll do the right thing, even though it's going to cost us $5,000 to get that report. We
Fewer
tried.
hours spent with the auditor.
I know.
We'll save it back in audits.
Well, it is to provide our continuing effort for transfer of
Transparency.
information to you and the public.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
And next will be consideration of the real estate lien subordination agreement.
About a month ago, EDC called and asked if the city was willing to do a subordination agreement regarding Big Bowl because they were trying to get an interim loan to get them through a financial crunch. And the bank was only willing to do it for, it's not a significant amount of money, and I'd rather not say that because the business doesn't want me to, but they needed, the bank needs us to do a subordinate on the CDBG loan. And the way I understand the CDBG loans, they're difficult to collect on anyway, even though you can take it to court if say, they up and folded the business. Not saying that you can't get your money, but it is usually subordinate anyway to the banks. So they're asking, in order to get their small loan from the bank, for us to take a subordinate position on the CDBG loan that they currently have.
What does that mean?
Let me tell you what that means.
Yeah.
So you're probably I can't tell whether you're already subordinate to this bank or not. It appears I only got a little bit of information on this, but it appears that when the original loan was made in 2007, it's an unsecured loan. And subordination usually goes to the issue of security interest.
Yes.
You know, if you have a main mortgage on your house and you have a second mortgage, the second mortgage is subordinate to the first mortgage, meaning if there was a foreclosure, the first mortgage holder gets their money before you, as a subordinate lender, get any money. Now, in this case, as far as I can tell, this is an unsecured loan, so the provisions in this document that the bank wants the city to sign that relate to subordination of security interests is really irrelevant to the city, because you don't have a security interest in any property anyway to secure this loan. The second thing, though, it provides is that the debt itself is subordinate, and this agreement provides that if there were a situation in which the borrower was in default to the bank, Millennium Bank, and Millennium notified the city, and in that period of time the borrower had made any payments to the city, you would be obligated to turn those payments over to the bank, because the bank is senior to you in terms of the debt. So that's essentially what it does. You obviously have no obligation to do this, but
Once we get the check.
I'm not sure it's going to make much difference, you know. And I understand they're in default as well.
Yes.
So,
They're technically in default of their CDBG loan now.
That's the part that concerns me. They're already in default.
And the way I read this, that even though they're in default, if the bank loans them more money, that let them operate a little longer and maybe help them turn around.
That's the goal. The understanding is that particularly since they had made an obligation to have I think it's a senior men's tournament next spring, and that's what their goal is, to try to rectify their management problems and take care of some business and make sure they at least reach that goal. And it is strictly a decision of the commission, but I would agree with Ms. Logan's interpretation, as far as I can tell, and the reading of the documents and from what I read on this.
We don't have any money in the game.
No,
It really doesn't matter that much to us, I wouldn't think.
it's just you're the
We
manager.
hope the business pulls forward.
Yeah, you're the manager of the CDBG loan fund.
Right.
And so you have to understand that you always need to know that those CDBG loan funds are high-risk loans, and that's what they're intended for.
So if they get the loan from Millennium, the senior tournament comes through, all could be right with the world.
I don't know.
That's the assumption we're hitting.
That is the assumption at this point.
Hope.
The hope, yeah.
I actually want to speak to the bowl because I was there for their PBA tournament this summer. They put on a class event. There's some renovation that needs to be done, but people came from afar, and there were a lot of folks that came there, and just because of the way it was run. If I looked at this and didn't visit and didn't know the facility, I'd probably say no. But the folks that were there for the bowling tournament this year said they would be willing to come back, and they told Joe that they would be willing to come back. And with him already sponsoring the seniors bowl coming here, with some help from the chamber and the CVB with marketing grants, we could get this out there, because I think the word wasn't put out there very well. And we probably should have had a lot more bowlers, a lot more people observing. But this is what we have to do in the city, is we make sure that we pull together. This gentleman wants to do it. I don't like the fact that he's 4 months behind, but I know what he does there. And him being a professional bowler himself, he brings those other bowlers to town. But there's got to be some work done there, and I'll admit that it's a little bit behind the times. But you got to spend money to make it, and I hope these 4 months he can make it up with that seniors tour. But I think he'll make it up because a lot of folks on post bowl at JC Bowl, because the lanes are so taken care of. They're well, and they're good lanes. So I speak for the bowling. I used to bowl. I might start back again. Arms.
What is the city's risk?
By signing the subrogation agreement, I don't see a risk at this point. I mean,
The legal risk is that if they were in a position to start making payments again, because they obviously aren't now, and at that time they were also in default under the senior loan, which is this loan, that would get paid before you got paid.
right.
Which is maybe not, that's a legal risk, but it may not be a practical risk because in reality, you know, that one may be paid before yours in any event. So you're giving up, by agreeing to this, if they're in default under the senior loan, you're giving up any right to have them make payments to you before they make payments to the senior lender.
They would have to catch that loan up 100% before they started paying us at
Yeah,
all.
if they were,
They defaulted.
if they defaulted under the senior loan, if they were in a position where they could make payments to both of you at the same time, and they weren't in default under the senior loan, you could keep all the
Right.
payments they made to you, and they wouldn't be under default under the senior loan. It would only be if they were in default under the senior loan, then in essence, you're agreeing that all their money goes to pay the senior debt before it pays you. And if they happened to make a payment to you that was deposited in the city before, you'd have to regurgitate that payment and give it to the senior lender.
I did notice the banker is in the audience. Did we say that all correct? Okay. So we are correct.
So the big banker gets the money and the city doesn't.
Well, if they're successful at their retry, their reboot, then everybody gets paid. This is an opportunity for them to reboot.
Is there a plan? Has there been a,
That has not been shared with us, but that's what we've been told. And I believe Susan has been working with them somewhat. Susan's been working with them somewhat. And they're working with is it SBA? They're also working with SBA.
Because we're a little bit in the dark here, and I guess I'd like to get some feel from those conversations. I mean, how confident do you all feel about this?
are there steps being taken to rectify the issue? I just don't see agreeing to
That,
chasing the rabbit down the hole.
yeah, well, that's why they are working with SBA and Susan and others to try to work towards that management plan to rectify it. And that's why they've asked for the additional funding and additional assistance from the community to give them the opportunity to make it work.
Susan?
Working with SBA, they will receive assistance. SBA just doesn't arbitrarily help out a business. They make sure they do know where they're going. They do have a plan. Are looking for ways. They have a support system. Being able to help with getting funding assistance. Working with us and talking to hoping that changing their management around that they have some issues. So, and also with the revolving loan fund is not technically city. The city's really giving up out of their pockets or anything. It's a fund that's set aside from CDBG for the state to be able to help high-risk businesses get up and get going. So, and again, talking about that, the revolving loan funds are unsecured. We don't ask for any security or any.
The bank is doing their financial due diligence on the subrogation agreement, as required in a lot of situations. But
Do you think if they did default on the CDBG loan that, or any business from our community would have a difficult time getting money in the future? Would that be a dark mark for us?
No, this has no bearing on the CDBG fund itself.
Okay.
That's what I would be concerned about.
Okay.
The CDBG loan fund is a perpetual fund on monies that were granted, oh gosh, probably the 80s, the 1980s. It's not like it's an ongoing grant. Yeah, we have to do an annual report to the state on how we're using the money, but it does not black mark us, or it was a grant long time ago, and we just simply have to report to them how it's being used. In fact, if we don't use the money, that's when they start saying, okay, let's take it back. Some other community can have a revolving loan fund if you're not going to use it. And I've been in a community that happened to. But as long as we show proof that we're using the money and continuing to as we bring it in, give it back out, that's how we manage the fund.
So they've been paying on the CDBG loan since '07?
Yes.
Just the last few months that they haven't been able
Yes.
to pay? What's the
They've
total?
struggled on and off for being late on their payments, but it's just the last months that they've not paid at all.
Which is probably going to continue.
Unless they can turn it
If
around.
if they get this other loan, if they're going to be paid first. Something to think about.
The key point is that the bank is not going to give the other loan unless you subrogate.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. If we don't subrogate, they're probably down to 2.
Right.
Do we know if there's any renovation plans?
That I don't. Is there any renovation plans? Not that I know I'm aware of. No.
Okay. Because it needs a facelift. The young folks love to come there, but they know what the big bowls look like.
There's no budget impact.
No.
It's not our money.
You simply just manage it.
We're just the teller.
Okay.
I move to approve the real estate loans subordination agreement.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Is there any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Good luck, Bank.
And next will be the public hearing and consideration of the 2015 budget for publication.
It's not the actual publication hearing. I'm simply presenting you the budget for you to set the public hearing. And our recommendation for setting the public hearing is that you're saying that I have presented you the preliminary budget and it's ready for publication. Once you agree to that, then it gets published, and that publication will be the hearing date set by you tonight. Our recommendation is to set it for the 19th at 7 o'clock. We would have, if you adopt it tonight, then we will, it's already scheduled for Thursday publication, and then that's 10 days in between publication and the hearing is all that's required by the state of Kansas. So you would adopt the budget as presented for publication, not that you're adopting the budget, and set the public hearing.
Well, I moved to adopt the budget as presented for publication and set the public hearing for August 19, 2014 at 7 p.m. at the City Commission meeting room at City Hall.
Yes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the budget as presented and set a public hearing for August 19th.
I just have one question. That 47.667, is that public?
Yeah. Once I did the final tweaking of the audit numbers, it brought it slightly down.
Okay, because I knew you had talked about that.
Yes,
Okay, so-
and it did. It brought it 0.0, I think, 2 or 3 points down. I mean, a very slight
Not from
decrease.
last year.
No, within the 2015 projection. And it is, both last year and this year, it's 47.6, but it's 0.635 versus 0.667.
I just didn't know if that had finally been.
And it's, yeah, and likely, as I've indicated, that usually this number usually goes down even a little bit more once it goes through the process of verification and final numbers with the county, because they set the final number, not us.
Yep.
We set a projected number, what we request, and then they will adjust it based on the valuation, the final valuation.
Is there any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is consideration of Quality Trust revolving loan.
Taking that one. Are you,
And
you have him do a presentation?
do you want to give us a short presentation, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. On that same note, CDBG grant program, in light of its legislative purposes to help small business and economic development. We've been successful through the years with the SBA and the different grant programs. This isn't our first rodeo. The government has their own way of initiating procedures for how these loans get paid and the effect they make on the economy. This city development business grant would be to help our company continue in that same vein of growing and continuing to be a viable company, which we've been here for 30 years, and help us expand, create more jobs, build up the tax base, become more of an asset, less of a burden and more of a blessing to the community. Of course, our loan, if approved, would be used for creating jobs, equipment, city imaging for that side of the town, which needs it badly. I had left a copy of the application for about a month now and discussed it briefly last time, and we've been working on it for about 6 months. It's a grant program, and I just kind of feel sorry for all the businesses that try to apply for these grants because you have to go through an act of Congress to get it approved. But once the governing body sees and gets the revelation of, wow, this is a good thing for the city, then these businesses that are successful pay it back. And then another business can pay it forward. That's what we want to do. We hope that we could go as far as we can, as far as the amortization and paying the up to, I believe Susan said, 10 years on the 4%. But we hope to pay it off in 3 to 4 or 5 years, maybe less than that. But in retrospect, if we're faithful and we pay it off, we could always come back for another loan. They're set up very similar to the SBA loans, and they're, of course, the SBA loans have guarantees. These don't have any guarantees. They're good faith loan grants, and it's for the benefit of the community. And I just hope and pray that if it's approved, that we could use every penny of that to benefit Junction City and its citizens, to help our company to be a viable company. We don't have any plans of moving or going anywhere else. This is home. We love it here. We've been here 36, going on 37 years, and we feel like this grant program could be an answered prayer. If there's any questions?
I do have one. I love your presentation, love everything here. You're local. We know where you live at. And my feeling is this. It looks like you have the assets, it looks like you have the support to actually do this event. The one question I have, though, is I read this one letter that's in the submission on the homeowners association. They said you haven't approached them, and if they have a homeowner association that ties up right next to where you're at, have you approached them, or do you have a plan to approach them? Because I
Well-
think they're going to be upset if you don't.
Well, we already did that.
Okay.
Of course, one of the officials stepped down because they moved to Germany, so they always have turnover.
Yes.
But we plan on doing the community imaging over there, developing the frontage of the Grant Avenue for one. We have great plans for that. That's kind of, well, I did share some of the renditions and the plans for the front of the property. The HOA is nonprofit. We are the declarant up until 75% of the development is complete. That's the way it was set up with the city obligation bonds, with the special taxes, and the original arrangements for these for the development of that property with the first developer. We're basically just taking the baton and trying to finish what somebody else started. We're not skipping town. If we do, it'd be after maybe 40 years.
Do you have a contract with the HOA that shows that you are the declarant? Do you have a
Yes.
contract? Have you submitted that contract?
I'm sorry?
Where is that contract?
It is the,
Because you stated that you're going to provide service for all this HOA.
yes, those are individually owned homeowners, and they're just being rented right now. There's a whole bunch of businesses like from Manhattan, maybe some in Junction City, and they're kind of piecemealing it. We're just trying to put it all under one roof with the,
But they have a choice. They can go with anyone they want.
oh, absolutely.
So there is no contract. There is no guarantee that you would have business through the HOA.
Oh, no, we would, because we're still the declarant. Until 75% of that development is complete, we're the declarant.
And what actually made you the declarant? But the way I understood it was when American Dream defaulted, their plan was defunct and that it wasn't passed on to anybody. Did you buy that from American Dream?
Yes. No, we bought it from the,
You bought it from a tax auction?
Correct.
So then you just bought the lots?
correct.
So you did not buy the right?
According to the developer, though, because of the way the city set it up with the city obligation bonds, that's the way
That's
it was.
incorrect. That's legally incorrect. But honestly, I don't know the basis on which he's making these statements, but that is not true. So he's wrong. He may be mistaken, I don't know, but he is not the declarant.
We are the declarant.
Okay.
According to developers, once we took over all the paperwork, all the city obligation bonds,
He didn't take
all
over
of the
any it.
paperwork came over to us. This is what was my understanding
true.
from them.
So,
But aside from that, we are developing those lots there too. So this is the first phase of like 3 different phases also. It's a very small part of the phase, but it's something that needs to be done.
Mr. Ruiz, if this is going to go forward with us, we need to have documentation from you showing that what you're saying is true fact. And in the absence of that, I don't see as how I could rightfully go forward with it.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question to you and the commission would be, if that was the case, then are we changing horses midstream? Because as far as the city obligation bonds for the special taxes and the way that was set up in the beginning, has all that changed? Because if all that's changed and we're changing the names and we're changing the rules and we're changing the games, then
How are we
there's a bunch of
changing?
confusion.
that may be his perception of it, but he is wrong in every aspect of what he's trying to persuade you of, so we have a waste of time to continue this dialogue, in my opinion.
tonight we're talking about a revolving loan fund, which is a grant.
But before we do that, before we move on giving a grant, we have to know what the plan is and what you're going to do, and we have to be assured that it's legal.
And you do have an obligation under the revolving loan fund program to ensure that you have an obligation to make loans that there's going to be some opportunity for it to be repaid, and that there's some clear purpose for the loan to be made. And I don't think any of that is really satisfied by what you have in front of you,
Yeah.
even remotely.
Well,
this case.
Your Honor, I think tonight, number one, Mrs. Logan is out of place.
Excuse me. Mrs. Hogan is our attorney, and she's here to advise me, so whatever she has to say
I
to me
understand.
is
I understand,
Correct.
but she made accusations or toward me. So let me speak my piece. And this comes from former Commissioner Scott Johnson. She's in conflict of interest because the developers that ripped off the city, her company's working on a multi-million-dollar claim with Lawrence County. Also, Lathrop and Gage sued us, okay, in the 5th District Court and Appeal Court in Mississippi, okay? You don't need to be talking to me. You're in conflict of interest.
Okay, I'm
You're
done.
opening
I'm done
up
with the
yourself for a
conversation.
lawsuit.
I'm done with the conversation, period. Because I'm not going to do the.
I understand.
movement.
I'm sorry. It's just that she just,
I'd make a
Let
motion
Mr.
to
Jones
deny the
speak.
request.
I
of
can
the
appreciate the mayor and the
Quality Trust
commissioners.
Incorporated.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Motion and a second by
Yeah.
McAllister.
Yep.
and I missed the motion in a second.
I said I move to deny the request for the CDBG loan to the Quality Trust Incorporated.
We have a motion and a second to deny this action. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, commissioners.
Next on the agenda is consideration of award of bid for the expansion and renovation of 701 North Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Got some good news to report. We had a bid opening for the 701 North Jefferson project, and the amounts that we received, the two lowest bids, were both below what was planned on in the feasibility study, so that's good news. We opened those bids on Tuesday. Cheney Construction out of Manhattan, their low bid was, and base bid was $902,945. The second highest bidder was, the second lowest bidder was BHS Construction. Their bid was $1,052,339. The Cheney amount was 20% under the engineer's estimate, and the BHS was 7.2% below the engineer's estimate. When we wrapped up the bid opening, Bruce McMillan contacted both of those bidders and asked them for schedule of values and their subcontractor lists. They provided that information to us. That information is included in your packet. It provides the amounts that they're planning to expend for each of the items and the contractors they plan on using for each of those items. In addition to the base bid, there were some addendums that we would like the commission to consider, including additional improvements to the building. That would be a vestibule entrance for the front of the building. The idea being that having that airlock system in place would help reduce energy costs. Additional brick veneer at an additional cost, but it would complete the building in the brick veneer so that it matches the current structure there. And then the other added expense is the carpet tiling, and what that would do is if there was a spill or something happened to the carpet in the lobby area, you would be able to take that piece out and replace it with a new piece, so that
In
you
the
wouldn't have to-
courtroom, not the lobby.
In the courtroom.
Yeah, the lobby is done in
Tile.
linoleum.
And then the last item is the desk that would be in that room that you would sit at and then the judge would sit at. Instead of having something new built, we would actually have them move this setup to the new building, and that would save us approximately $14,000. And so we're looking at ways to save money and do this project and get it in well. One of the things that we looked at was there was a large difference between the low bid and the second lowest bid, and so Bruce McMillan contacted each one of the
bidders and kind of provided some additional information in a letter that he provided dated July 29th. And if you have any questions about that, I think Bruce McMillan could probably address that. The city is recommending the low bid to Cheney Construction, the city staff. I think it'd probably be a good idea to have Mr. McMillan address the commission about the difference in the two bids that were received and why there's a difference there.
Thank you, Tyler. Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Bruce McMillan. I have an architectural practice at 332 West 7th Street here in Junction City, and we are pleased to be able to bring this project forward to you this evening. As Tyler has explained, the bidding process, and in the course of our doing our due diligence on your behalf, we did note the rather sizable difference between the lowest and the second lowest bid. And in the investigative process, it allowed for further conversation to take place regarding the actual structural members for the addition itself. And this is where we found that there had been, based upon the project specifications and how they are written, there was a discrepancy in the procedures that took place, apparently, for the lowest bidder, whereas there was not a specific bidder for the structural building system identified at bid time. This was then further investigated, and in, again, our investigative process and to bring forward to you information for your decision-making process, it was noted that there was a plug number on that particular item that was then considerably lower than the other bidders that addressed this project. With that information, we provided that in our letter to you. However, even with that discrepancy, we've allowed for you to make a decision based upon your evaluation of the bids as they were presented. And there, I don't believe there's a bidder or a member from Cheney Construction this evening with us, but there is a member of the staff from BHS Construction that may wish to address the commission regarding their evaluation of their bid if you care to entertain Mr. Shutter from BHS Construction. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions, provide any further clarification that maybe Tyler or Mrs. Beatty may care to make at this time as well.
Did you not, although, get Mr. Cheney to declare who the building contractor was going to be, where the building would come from then, from Rigid Global?
After our initial discussion, where there was no building provider noted during our initial discussion, nor on the original bidder's submittal, which was required within 2 hours after the bids were open, which is where this arose, and we didn't have a building provider, we then investigated with Mr. Cheney, and yes, he indicated that Barco Pruden, which is a very qualified bidder, building manufacturer, would be the provider. Further discussion prior to our meeting on Friday, after bids were taken with Mrs. Beatty and with Tyler, it was indicated that Barco Pruden was not going to be potentially the building supplier, and that further investigation was being conducted. And in the procedures that typically take place in these kinds of situations, it appears that we have bid shopping going on. But Rigid Global was identified as a potential that was going to be investigated. At the time that the actual letter was submitted, which is in your packet, it was confirmed that Rigid Global would be the provider for the building package. I spoke with a representative of Rigid Global, and as I understand, they are in contact with Mr. Cheney, and that they, in my understanding at this point, are being used as the building provider. The only thing we have at this point is the letter from Mr. Cheney stating such. There is a sizable dollar difference between the number being quoted here and all of the other bidders, which on your behalf again raised considerable question in our mind regarding how the bid came in. So that is where we
Then is
are.
it not your job and my job and Tyler's job to hold their feet to the fire that they meet all specifications if we accept their bid?
That would be the case.
Yes.
That would be the case. And we have had the discussion with Mr. Cheney that we are not interested in change orders, and he understands that. And we will, as Cheryl just said, be holding the feet to the fire on this. Garrick Baker with our office is working with me as project job captain on this project, and we understand that whatever direction you decide to go, we will support that decision.
The point being that it is our obligation to point out to you that there was a discrepancy in the bid. It is up to you whether you're going to honor the low bid based on the discrepancy or move on to the next bidder. Staff's recommendation is that we will hold, that's why I asked Mr. Cheney to write the letter saying he's going to stand behind his bid. And with that being said, then it's up to us then to manage it on your behalf if you accept the low bidder. And we'll make sure that he falls within the parameters of his bid.
Mr. McMillan, are you familiar with the Rigid Global Buildings?
No, sir. I am not familiar with that particular firm, other than the telephone conversation that I had with them out of Colorado shortly before we submitted the final packet for your review. I am familiar with the bail-in building system, which is what you have now sitting there is a bail-in building. It is a very standard quality building. The second lowest bidder, BHS, is a bail-in licensed distributor, and that is the basis, what we call basis of design, that we used, that our structural engineer used for the project. So that is in the BHS bid. And Varco Pruden was another one that we were familiar with. Had Mr. Cheney brought Varco Pruden in, we were familiar with that firm as well. This firm, for whatever reason, we've never utilized that particular firm.
But again, we would make sure whatever they propose is within the parameters of the bid specifications.
What we would have to do is when the shop drawings are submitted for the building package, and those would also go to Mark Carmen, and Mark is no longer here this evening, but Mark would also receive a copy of those shop drawings, and they would also go to our structural engineer. If, for some reason, those shop drawings do not meet the structural specifications that have been designed for this project, they would be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have to go and have Mr. Cheney resubmit that same building manufacturer with the correct calculations, correct components, and so forth, or he would be required to submit potentially another building package, although that was not discussed. There would have to be a building package that would meet the structural specifications for the project.
The city has used Cheney Construction in the past. We could not find information on the law enforcement center in which they were a part of, but we did have some information, and they built the 12th Street Center. That was 15 years ago. It is hard to do a clear comparison because management changes and all of the things change. The only thing that we know of fact is that they had bid it as 210 days. They were over on their days, and they were over on their budget. 25%, you said? But even, again, I've managed projects before. They're going to be darn hard to get a change order out of me. But they have to have a darn good reason why there'd be a change order. And if there's that good of a reason for a change order, then there would likely be a change order under BHS or Cheney. I mean, it'd have to be a significant findings that was not in the bid specifications in order to create a change order. Just so you know, any changeover by city policy that's more than $25,000 comes back to you. So you would be well aware if there was any problems that would come up.
Has Cheney validated their bid?
They have provided the letter of confirmation that they will stand behind it, yes.
Yes,
And it should be, that letter should be in your packet.
it is.
It's on page 412.
It's there.
There's very few local subcontractors and no local general contractor. Did we not receive bids from any
None.
local general contractor?
Commissioner, we contacted 5 Junction City contractors for this project. 1 requested documents, and we provided that for them. I did not get a response from the others by telephone or otherwise.
And they were required to come up to a pre-bid meeting, and no local contractors showed up to the pre-bid.
Correct.
I can say we went more than out of our way to try to encourage local contractors to get involved.
I didn't see any contingency. Is there a contingency fee as well?
Within the project budget, we have a $20,000 contingency to be used for gremlins in the closet kinds of things. Not a huge amount, but things that will, in any renovation, you will find things here and there. We also have another $10,000 built into the budget. That is for materials testing, that is for concrete testing, and Call Valley would likely be the testing firm that would do that. There would be bolt connection testing that would have to be done for the steel structure. And then there is a utilities fee that is built in for $5,000. So there's already $35,000 built in to the base bid for contingency. Now, the Cheney schedule of values did not happen to show those. I believe the other one that is in your packet from BHS does include those in the listing.
Do we have any recent references on the bidders? The top
I did
2
not.
bidders?
Did you double check references?
I did, and I can share this if it's appropriate to do so. We did. I don't have this in writing. I did ask for something in writing. It was not provided. We checked with Kansas State University Department of Facilities, and I spoke with the vice president that I've known for a number of years. At this time, Cheney Construction Company is barred from bidding on projects for Kansas State University facilities for 1 year. Not because of discrepancies in price or otherwise, because of elongation and not finishing projects within the stated amount of time. And that was the information I received. I also called the Office of Facilities and Procurement Management at the state of Kansas and spoke with a project manager that I, again, have known for well over 20 years. Cheney Construction is not on the disapproved list. It is still on the approved, but there have been situations, as I understand, and I'm simply reporting exactly what I was told. There are situations where projects have been elongated, have not been finished on time. However, there is not enough documentation at this time to withdraw their name from the approved list.
On the time reference, the way we would manage that is that either on a weekly or biweekly basis, Mark Carmen, who is going to act as our representative, would make Mr. Cheney sign a sheet every 2 weeks saying that we agree or disagree to bad weather days or the days worked or not worked. And that way we hold their feet to the fire the 210 days that they have stated in their bid. And only upon our approval would there be bad weather days given or not given. And then from there, if he doesn't, there's a penalty assessed for every day that they're over schedule. Or it's not a penalty, it's what's it called?
Liquidated damages.
Liquidated damages is assessed for every day that they're over schedule. Now, on your references, you did not find that it's the quality of their work. It was more about the time in which they completed it. We had estimated this project to take 9 months. They bid it as 210 days.
7 months. Yeah. The second bid has nine months in it, I
Yeah.
believe.
They provided the shortest time frame.
Which, if they completed it within the 200 time, would be a huge win for us, because the less they have to be in the basement, the better off Court is going to be. So on the 210 days, I mean, we'll be celebrating if they get it done in 210 days. We'll love it. We will just absolutely love it.
How is that penalty collected?
Liquidated damages, explain how it works.
Well, it's part of the whole
It's part of the
It
contract.
is part of the contract.
act, and you would be holding back a portion of your
Right.
payments.
Percentage of
so
the
you-
payment.
State statute, and correct me again, ma'am, state statute allows us to hold up to 5% on construction projects throughout the course of the project while it is under construction as retainage. At the 50% mark, and this is different than when we did a couple of projects previously, because the state has reduced it from 10% to 5% now.
I wasn't aware of that
Yes.
they'd reduced it. Too bad.
They've reduced it from 10 to 5.
And it used to be 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And state statute allows for the retainage to be eliminated at the 50% mark if proper progression is being made throughout the course of the project, which means that by the end of the project, the retainage is only 2.5%. But there has to be, as Cheryl has said, significant documentation to allow that option to occur. And that would have to come before city staff and presumably before the commission as well, if that allowance was to be accepted. So at this juncture, I would say that we would be holding the 5% retainage throughout the course of the project, and then at the end, final payment would not be made until all punch list items were completed and the project was properly closed out.
And they also have to post a bond.
Right.
Yeah,
There
performance.
would be bond on
Performance.
the project. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
That's standard practice on how you manage a project. And I typically don't release the money until we absolutely have to, because I want to make sure the punch lists get done. And so every payment they draw down on, if they request $25,000, they only get 95% of the 20 for the payout. And we hold that money.
I'm pretty concerned that even before the bidding process was completed, Cheney changed from Varco to rigid, seems to be flip-flopping, I think you called it bid shopping, or they seem to be flopping around there a little bit. I'm a little concerned with history as well as changing the bid in the middle of negotiation. I wished I had more information.
We've investigated as much as we think we have available to us at this time, Commissioner.
Understand that. And you did the same for BHS? Investigated?
We have worked, likewise, we have worked with BHS. They are now performing at least 2 projects for us at this time, and they are on schedule and within budget.
Okay.
The difference is the significant savings to the taxpayers on the lower bid, and it would simply be staff's responsibility to make sure we stay within that.
Is it 171,000, is that right?
That's a significant savings.
150.
I know, that's hard not to look at.
Yeah,
Consideration.
the bottom line is very difficult not to take into consideration, but
Concerns me though. I mean, what are they,
But as I
what are we
said,
skimping on? You know, what are we gonna,
well, that's our job to make sure
Boundary.
they don't skimp. That they follow the bid specifications, that they get the quality of product that is specified in the bid, that they get the product installed in a timely manner, that we see that they're on the job, that then it's staff's responsibility to make sure it gets done based on the contract that they have said they're gonna stand behind. In his review, yes, they have complaints about length of service, but the complaint was not about the quality of service provided.
how about change orders? Have they done a lot of that in the past? As far as you know?
As far as I know, there have been change orders, yes.
I'm concerned about the low ball, just to get the bid, and then let's see what happens after that.
But
Let's roll the
remember,
dice.
change orders are granted by us. We don't have to give them.
I hear you, but then they got part of the work done, then they walk away, then you're starting over again, so.
Then that's called a performance bond.
Yeah.
And I've gone there with contractors in the past, if you have to. And then the performance bond picks it up and finishes it out.
I can shed some light here. It looks like they've received some accommodations. They also built the Best Buy, and they got a 120-day completion notification or award given to them. They also built a Norton State Prison in Norton, Kansas, as well for a 120-day completion notice. So they got it done in under 120 days. But they also built the Best Buy in Manhattan. They built some structures on K-State, Anchored Hall, and the expansion had done great, and they got commended on that. They've been in existence since 1957. They've been around for a
Ron
while.
Chaney's father started the firm in Clay Center, actually, many years ago. He's no longer living, however.
Everything here comes up good, and the Better Business has no complaints about them. They're not ranked or rated with the Better Business because they're not part of them. But the Better Business has received nothing bad or negative on their company.
I agree that it makes our job a little more difficult when there's a discrepancy in the bid, but I think that's overcome by simply holding their feet to the fire to the bid specifications. That's why we go through the process of hiring an architect to do those very specific bid specifications, and then we make sure that the contractor follows them.
I know I've worked with Mr. McMillan in the past, and I know he is a stickler, so.
That's our job, to make sure that the contractor follows the bid specifications that they have designed.
And I've also worked with contractors for the last 30 years, and I understand that there are times that either things are missed or come up as a surprise, one of the closet. And I have worked with contractors as the chief inspector at Fort Riley, and I've seen hundreds of contractors that would get their foot in the door and then go from there. Sometimes they have you at a disadvantage. There may be a miss in the specifications where we have no other choice but excuse me, but to do a change order.
Correct.
And we've kind of got that covered with the contingency. But that's a very small contingency on $1 million project.
As a percentage, yes, sir, it is. Yeah, it's not intended to be a large change order contingency by any means. I purposely leave these as a 0.5% or 1 or 1.5% of a budget rather than inflate that number.
A change order, though, what you're describing as a change order, would have been a change order, whether it be under Cheney or BHS or any other contractor, because if it's missed in the
Most
specification,
probable.
if it's missed in the specifications, we missed something, or a gremlin came out of the closet that we didn't expect, that would have been under Cheney, under BHS, under every
Either way,
contractor.
right.
So those change orders are expected. But I'm talking about the change orders where the contractor is going to argue with us, oh, well, we can get this product that's a lot less expensive, and I say, no, this is what we bid, this is what we want, and this is what you're going to put in, because that's what's in the bid specifications, and that's what you said you would do. And so those are the kinds of things that it's up to management to say, no, that's not, you're not going to put a lower quality product in here. We wanted X 3/4 inch, whatever, and that's what you're going to put in. And that's our responsibility to make sure we follow the bid specifications and hold the contractor to feet to the fire. That's typical on project management.
Right. I didn't see a Buy America anywhere. Is that a Buy America clause in this particular contract?
No, sir.
Okay.
Nor does this follow Davis-Bacon or other typical federal contracts.
I like the idea of saving as much money as we possibly can for the taxpayer, but it would put an extraordinary effort on the architect and the local staff to ensure specifications are met, guidelines are met, standards are met, timelines are met. It's an extraordinary effort, and it's probably worth the money.
And then the other thing is, the architect lives a half a block around the corner, and the city's directly across the street, so inspectors are looking at it every day.
That I thought about too.
Drive by it
He
every
walks
day.
out of the building,
Yeah.
there's one in front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see what you're doing.
This is Tyler's department, so he's right across the street.
Live a block away, so I'll hear him working.
Live and breathe.
At least twice a day, and you're looking at them regularly.
No, I am very confident that Mark Carmen will, and he said he will be there daily, if not multiple times during the day, checking on them. They will be tired of him by the time it's said and done. Because it's right across the street.
That's $171,000 difference. That's just too big to, my opinion, to walk away from.
Too hard to pass up.
Yeah.
But it's also concerning.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I feel.
No,
Make your motion, let's move on, do something, whatever you want.
I understand your concern, Commissioner Landis, but I'm, that's why we specifically asked Mr. Cheney to write you a letter saying you will stand behind your bid. And now it's staff jobs to make sure he does.
Mr. Shutter from BHS is here if you want to entertain any comments from him, but that's at your discretion.
Certainly, I'd like to hear the other side of the coin. That's okay with you?
All right. Yeah.
What's your name, sir?
Patrick Shutter with BHS Construction. I'm Vice President, City Commission. Glad you could have me here tonight. We were, I guess, happy to have the number that we had on the bid to be $30,000 lower than the pack of bidders that were within, I think it was $8,000 of each other. We were very happy with our bid and the fact that we knew we were self-performing some items that would get our cost down. We continually bid against those other, at least two of the other bidders in Manhattan, and we're usually very close to each other. So we were very confident in our bid and happy that we were second. I wouldn't be so happy if I had a $900,000 bid on this project. You guys have a heck of a decision to make. There's
there's reasons you hear about bad contractors, and you're at the foot of a decision to potentially have an issue. And that's all I need to say. If there's any questions, I've got all of my paperwork from the estimate for what everything costs for what we estimated it to. There were no plug numbers. It was all subcontractors. We did solicit as many Junction City contractors as we possibly could. I think we received a bid from at least 2 or 3. I talked to at least, I think, 7 or 8 contractors. Some just were too busy, weren't interested. Maybe wasn't the type of scope of work that they wanted to try and do. But we did try and incorporate Junction City businesses into this project. So thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
I'll be glad to answer any other questions you might have.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing.
Were there any other questions?
None further.
Yeah, it does become a bit of a dilemma. I mean, do you save the money, but, you know, how do you know? I mean, I guess we have to rely on, to me, staff and Mr. McMillan's expertise, and that they are going to hold these people to the fire and make sure the quality is what it's supposed to be. All the bond stuff is in place, that it should not occur, so then that the quality can still be where it's supposed to be. It's just, for me, $171,000 difference is, how do you explain that to some of the folks?
We don't allow contractors to move forward until the performance bond is totally in place, and we verify it. That's just standard. We wouldn't allow them to do anything.
Won't the city commission approve the actual contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we will actually prepare.
The
Comes with
bonds-
that.
The bonds all have to come back.
Yeah.
With the contract, as well as evidence of insurance. And obviously, we'd want to be comfortable with whoever the, provider of the performance bond is.
When the actual contract comes back for signature, it'll be a standard American Institute of Architects contract between the owner and the contractor. It's a standard AIA form, and any attachments that the city may require. And it'll be accompanied by the performance and the material and labor bonds, as well as the insurance forms.
This tonight is just award of bid, and then the contract comes in, hopefully in 2 weeks.
As soon as we ask for the bonds to be ordered, then we'll have to put together a draft contract, because typically a bonding agency wants to see a draft contract with sort of the blanks filled in, so that they see what the contract actually says, and then they'll go ahead and issue the bonds at that time.
I'll move to award the bid for the project to Cheney Construction in amount not to exceed $919,382.
With the addendums that are recommended, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That does include the ad alternates, yes.
I'd have
Or the
to-
alternates, rather.
Yeah, there was addendums that we were recommending.
The dollar amount that you stated includes the addendum amounts.
Those addendums, okay. Just so we're clear.
It should, as far as
I just want to make sure you understood that. Okay.
I thought they did it,
919,382.
okay.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Cheney's bid as presented in the, as stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did you vote?
I did not.
The votes 3-1 with one abstention. to approve.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we appreciate staff's time in working with us on this project. We'll proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Next item is consideration and approval of a contract amendment for the Stormwater Management Master Plan Public Outreach Program.
Yes, Mayor and City Commission, what you have before you is essentially an outline that was included in your packet as far as scope of work. Essentially, this comes before you based on the conversations that we had with AMAC as they presented the stormwater management program to you, at least as far as where they were at, as far as on completing, as far as the study back on July 8th. And what we have since done is gone back, discussed several options as far as with respects to these stakeholder or outreach meetings. We've included, as far as the in the actual report, three options that are available as far as to you. One of those options, obviously, is the proposal that we pared down after several discussions, staff discussions with AMAC on developing as far as those stakeholder meetings. And essentially what we were looking to do is we felt, as we outlined to you in the workshop on the stormwater management program, this really boils down to the city's rate structure, or the structure that we're looking to move forward with as far as on funding our stormwater operations and utilities. As you know, right now we have a system in place that the city as a whole is not comfortable with, nor are we administratively, and we're looking to take a different direction and move, we want to say, towards more of a norm as far as that being a pervious, impervious type structure. We've got a lot of stakeholders that will be impacted as this structure as far as is implemented, and it was felt that potentially to reach out to various stakeholder groups in the community, retain their input, compile that, and be able to bring that back before the City Commission. So that's essentially the option one that you see in the report. The option two was essentially really paring that down significantly and really just doing a public forum as far as in outlining them, not really gathering as far as any data, but still as far as really having an open house type format. The third option that you see in the report is essentially just having AMAC stay the course, complete as far as, we're going to say, two rate options. We're looking at, because this is a pervious impervious, and if you were to truly look at individuals paying their fair share as far as based on what they've got, size of their lots and alike, I think what we're going to see is there's going to be a substantial, or would be a substantial change as far as that individuals would be paying on an annual basis. So the intent was to deliver to the City Commission with this option three portion. I'm going to refer to it as a cap and a no cap type option. So you'd see, for example, larger properties within the community that have a significant mass of land, and they also have a large impervious area, or be it parking or building structure, that their rate would be capped at a specific amount. In doing that, what you'd do is you'd basically be spreading that cost as far as over to all the other users to be able to make yourself whole as you would fund as far as your stormwater utility. As you see as far as in the report, the staff recommendation is to try to really develop, I want to say, the best financial business plan component we can of this stormwater management master plan. And our recommendation is to proceed as far as with that option one. However, you know, it's the will of the commission. You could choose to say we want to stay the course as far as with the original scope of work. We've had that discussion with AMAC. I think that we can still present as far as a quality product in the end that the city will be able to use as far as henceforward. But I don't think it's going to give as far as maybe that feedback that we indicated to you back at the workshop. So with that, I'd be happy to maybe try to answer any questions you might have in what we've presented you.
So am I reading this wrong? So on options 2 and 3, there is no additional cost?
Option 2, there would be an additional $6,000 to $7,000. It would be significantly paring back the stakeholder meetings. What we'd essentially have is just the public open house where we would outline as far as to them in more detail what was outlined in the workshop. We'd outline to them as far as the rate structure. We'd have a Q&A or a question and answer portion. We'd be able to present to the commission a summary as far as of those questions and answers that were compiled by the public. But we wouldn't be looking at, I want to say, analyzing as far as the position of the different stakeholder groups and presenting it back to you in that kind of format where you would have feedback. And I'm going to use an example of a group. The Landlord Association has approached, as far as Mrs. Beatty and myself for the last couple of years, just saying that they're very dissatisfied with the way the current structure that we have in place with our stormwater. They would like to see that reworked so that indeed they're maybe paying more of their fair share. And the intent with those stakeholder meetings would be to really take that material, pare down as far as that material so that it would be more in a sense that you'd get a pulse of what they're thinking as far as on truly as far as that kind of as far as rate structure being imposed as far as on all of them. And it's not just saying that we're going to look to the business community or in the industrial community. I think we'd be reaching out as far as to the general public as well.
But wouldn't you probably anyway, whether you did option 2 or 3, groups like that would probably be at those meetings and expressing their desires anyhow? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where one, I mean.
Let me give you a better example of number 1. We've got a number of churches in the community, and I'm just going to single that out. You've got churches that traditionally have a large building mass. They've got a large parking mass. Therefore, they probably, when you look at their overall square footage, they have a significant amount of impervious area. If you were to truly look at a pure impervious rate structure format, which is truly, we would like to go in that direction. However, as we noted to you in the workshop, I think there's going to be a significant public outcry on passing on that kind of rate structure within this community. You're going to see individuals that right now have a stormwater permit fee of, say, roughly around $1,200 a year, where indeed if you were to just do it strictly on a impervious, similar to what others are doing throughout the country, as well as in the state of Kansas, you'd be looking at an individual that would have an annual stormwater permit fee of roughly around $20,000 to $30,000. All right. Now, what you're going to see in the same accord of that is you're going to see single-family residentials or other properties that are much smaller. Their rate is going to be likely maybe reduced as far as to a degree because they're basically paying their fair share now as far as of the system. Does that make sense as far as what I mean, as far as by the stakeholder groups on what we would be trying to achieve?
And what doesn't make sense to me is how sudden the rates are going to be so different.
Because it's based off a true ERU unit. Under option 1, what they're saying is they will go to different segments of the community, the church groups, the landlords association, the realtors association, and talk with them all individually and meet with them and explain the different procedures and process and explain what's trying to be achieved here. Under the other option, they would only have one meeting where everybody could come.
Could you do that instead of AMEC? Could you go to these groups yourself and talk to them about it?
Yeah, we could. Do I think we would have the expertise as far as to be able to compile that for you? No, I don't think we. Okay. I don't think we do.
So in 4 meetings, I become more acceptable to the huge dollar increase you're talking about.
No, those meetings, Commissioner. The intent, as we noted to you in the workshop, was to reach out and to tier those stakeholder groups into, I want to call it, we've got some users that are, they're massive. They are so outside of the norm that we truly feel that we need to be able to talk to those individuals. Their stormwater fee right now under the current system is probably around $1,200 to $1,500 a year. If you were to go forward with the, which we feel we should, the impervious type methodology, you're looking at a stormwater fee that is going to be in the range of between $20,000 and $30,000. It's substantial, okay? Whereas we've got another group of individuals that are still rather massive in size, and I singled out the churches, but you could single out the hospital and all of their facilities and buildings. You could single out several of the restaurants as far as in town, that when you look at as far as what they've got, impervious versus impervious, and just so the public understands what we're saying, when we say impervious, the property has been improved. It could be pavement, it could be a rooftop, it could even be lawn, okay, versus unimproved property, okay? They impact as far as that storm system dramatically when you have a significant amount of impervious area that the water just sheet flows off. Therefore, we have to have bigger pipes because of the way that you use your property, are using it. And as we noted in the report, the area that we're looking to move forward is really I'm going to call it a modified option 2. We presented to you 4 options, as you recall, and the option number 2, what we're looking to do is number 1, make sure that we meet the regulatory compliance. All right. Right now, as AMAC has indicated to you, and truly underneath our new permit, we're not going to be in compliance. There are certain things we need to do to expend some monies to be able to keep ourselves in compliance. Likewise, we outlined to you there were minimal CIPs, or those are the brick projects that we indicated to you that needed to be undertaken. And then finally, we noted to you that we felt really the best bang for our dollar is to start implementing some operation and maintenance activities so that we don't have plugged culverts all over the community and we don't have deteriorated catch basins and manholes and whatnot. It's by doing that preventive maintenance, we can keep ourselves further out of that, I want to call it CIP, at a later date. The items that I didn't cover is obviously we've got debt service that still we're covering through the stormwater fee, and those have been incorporated into this formula that we're looking at. So what we're here presenting to you this evening is we feel we took the feedback we got from you on the 8th, went back to AMAC and said, look, if we had to go through this exercise of reaching out to the community with a series of stakeholder meetings with different stakeholder groups, and I think that I can envision as far as that you could probably pare those groups down into 3 major groups because of the tiers, and then truly have, as it's noted in the report, one public forum, which would be likely the majority of the residential properties in the community. The other 3 meetings, I think, you're dealing with substantial users of the system that have a significant amount of impervious area that, as you go forward with this kind of rate structure or change in rate structure, they're going to have the greatest impact, okay? But again, they are impacting the system far greater than anybody else, as we noted to you in those pie charts before.
The only thing, it came up at ADC today, and the only thing that we have not further discussed and given direction to AMAC on, and I wanted to bring it up tonight too, was we never discussed giving credit for retention ponds and on-site credits. So that's also yet to be decided from this group, is whether we're going to give retention credit.
Right, and I think it was just briefly noted to you that and I can say I'm very familiar with that kind of methodology, that, and we do have several large users that they've got detention facilities on their site that I fully expect that they're going to say, you know what, I should be giving credit for this because this is where my stormwater goes. This is how I impact the system. And that makes the formula a little bit more complicated. There are many communities in Kansas that currently do use that. That is not part of our equation as far as yet. Again, what we're trying to do is move away from as far as surely the methodology that we have, which,
Under that methodology too, you just need to understand that if you cap ERU units, or if you give credits, all you're doing is forcing, because we've told you we need X dollars to create X dollars in order for the three basic things to happen. But to create those X dollars, if you give caps or credits, then all you do is force the residential to go up, rate to go up. So you just keep that in mind as you make your decisions. Not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. Policy is going to be what it is when we incorporate all of that. But what doesn't get paid by commercial business will then be changed over to the residential. Because the whole basis of the ERU unit system is that you start with your lowest common denominator, which is your residential typical average lot. And then the ERU unit is created by that, usually around the 2,500 square foot
correct.
ERU unit, and that's your one unit. And then for every unit that a non-pervious surface, everybody else is calculated on. And that's what determines, and that's also what makes it a fair system. Because then you're basing it off of impervious versus non-impervious surface, based off of your original unit. But for every credit and for every time you cap, then you just reshift the money. So these policy decisions, though, and ultimately is what we're talking about. And that's why we had said that if you want more community input into this change and into this system, you don't have to. You can go out and have it, but that's what we were staff was asking you. Do you want further community input? And if you do you want AMEC involved? And then ultimately AMEC is responsible for giving you their final report on what they recommend and a comparison to other communities, which they haven't done yet. But what they're saying that they're ready to do, and if you're ready for them to pull the trigger, is that AMEC will go ahead and say, well, here's what the ultimate program would look like, where you have a strict one ERU unit, and here's what typical customers, and they'll give you examples what it would charge. Now, if you want to cap it at $10,000, this is how it's going to affect the residential, and this is how it's going to affect the restructuring. The only thing that I'm uncertain in my mind is that in addition to maybe capping at $10,000 per year, do you want credits for on-site retention, which has not been answered yet.
Right. I think maybe in summary to clarify what do you have here is option one is gaining that, call it that feedback back from the public, and then compiling that into more options than what's going to be provided to you in the original scope of work, which is option 3. Option 2, really that's going to give you some information, but it's not going to go to the depth as far as that we had talked about on reaching out into the different, I want to call it, units or segments as far as, if you will, as far as of the potential as far as rate structure. That's really what option 2 is, or excuse me, option 1 is before you. We think, and again, why is staff looking at that? And I don't want people to say, well, here you're going on spending more money. You can see you've got their proposal in there, and also you've got the breakdown of hours. There's a significant amount of work involved as far as in developing that information. So that's why we included both of those items in your packet, so that you could see what are you going to get? What are you truly getting as far as for this, should you go through that? I guess I'd like to leave this as well, is that as we move forward with this stormwater management master plan, realize this, yes, it's a study. It's a study, at least I think many feel it's long needed. We're going to get a tremendous amount of information from it, but we're going to be using that as well as that financial business plan, very similar to what we're using the water and wastewater components in the future as well. It's not going to be something that once we develop, we're going to just push off to the side. We're going to continue to use both of those documents as we move forward, and that's what I wanted to really note.
This is what should have been done from the very beginning, at the creation of the stormwater fund. It wasn't. Now we're going back to try to rectify that and correct it. That's what makes this an even harder decision, is because we had a system in place that wasn't functioning really right. Yes, it was taking in money, but it wasn't for a specific purpose, and it wasn't, well, it was for the purpose of stormwater management, but it wasn't for an outlined capital plan. And the second part of it is that the rate system wasn't really based on anything other than to grab off a shelf some other city's rate structure, and obviously isn't working for us. So it has made our job and your job more difficult. There's nothing we can do about that. The additional monies to be spent, likely well spent, but a decision is whether you want to spend them or not. Because we intend for this to be the long-term plan for the city of Junction City to go forth now.
Okay. I've been listening a long time, and I know what you're saying here. There's, the way I read this, and hopefully, and if you can just give me a yes or no, I don't need a whole bunch of detail. Option one is they come to town, they brief us a bunch, a lot of input from the public. Option two is they brief us once. If there's not much more demand than that, that's all there is. Option three, they send a PowerPoint brief to us, pretty much this is what's going to happen, move forward. But if we go with option two and then the public shows up and says, hey, this is pretty good, we may need to do this again, which is probably option four. Why can't we do something similar to that and see if there's a demand? Rather than throw 24,000 out there and say, okay, we're going to have all these meetings come together. If I understand this correctly, if I want option two, they come to town, there's more demand for it, we request them. I'm pretty sure they want money. And if we request it and we want it one more time, instead of paying them 24,000, we spend maybe 10 or 12. Can that be done? And all I need is a yes or no.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Yes. If option two worked, and it works so well that there's even more of a demand, yeah, the AMAC, I'm sure, would give us another proposal.
Exactly.
There's a partner come about, option one, you talk about preliminary is 24 something, but then down in the recommend motion, it says 24, so I got like what Jim was talking about. I mean, I could live with option one if provided, and I guess who's gonna make that determination, but if you had one meeting and it was really great and everybody shows up and gives that information.
You may not need another meeting, or you may.
Yeah,
That's up to you. I mean, then it would come back to you to say, okay, do you want another meeting or not? And we go from there.
Because we've done some wonderful
And we could do that.
presentations.
We could do that.
Yeah, that's,
We've asked the
that's a good
public to
idea.
come in, and they
Sure.
don't come here. We've had the strategic plan, wonderful presentation, but we could count almost everybody on one or two hands that showed up.
Yeah.
This is a community interest. This here is going to take up a lot of interest. We would want folks to show up. But if they don't show up, we've already spent $24,000. It's like,
Yeah, agreed.
spend it as we need it, I think. That's just,
This is another tough one. I mean,
And I think the options were not cut in stone. I mean, I appreciate what you noted, Commissioner. I mean, absolutely, you could
because I
put
think
that up.
I started you down that road, and I think I
Right.
probably should.
I think what led us maybe a little bit towards that option one is hearing, I want to call it maybe the public outcry on that business license aspect and, you know, the licensing, and we were just saying, you know what, this is significant change for this community, and sure, I think we had that one meeting, and if there is enough dialogue that we feel we've got to come back, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Let's see if I can put that into something here. And with option two, we don't lose a whole bunch, right? We still get all the information they're going to give us from option one. It just costs us a good bit less. Good bit in my paycheck.
but we're not, that option is we're not going to be seeking out specific organizations. We're simply going to invite everybody to come to us in one
Exactly.
meeting.
That'll work. And then we video it. And the CVB can do that, and we'll put it out there. I mean, we're a city, we work together. So I think we can get that out there to the folks. Or maybe Mr. Jim can video it.
I don't think we have the equipment to.
Got a cell phone?
Unless you're gonna do it in his room.
You got a cell phone? All right. I move, excuse me. I move to recommend approval of contract amendment to AMEC Environmental and Infrastructure, Inc. for the stakeholders meeting whereby feedback and input can be gained and used towards the final financial business plan within the city stormwater management plan in the amount not to exceed $7,000. Minimum items from option 1, proposal above.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move forward with option 2. Is there any further discussion?
I'm kind of tired of spending money on meetings,
Yeah.
quite honestly, gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is a federally mandated thing that we have to do this. There are communities all over this country that face the same questions that we face now. We could look at a Walmart in Tulsa, Oklahoma and see what they pay. We could look at another one in a hospital in Cheyenne, Wyoming and see what they pay. You know, we can do all that. I just don't see the point of spending more money. You're going to have a stakeholders meeting and people are going to say, I don't want to pay any more money.
Yeah.
What are they going to say? Yes, I want to pay more money. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. I don't see it personally. I don't see the point. I think you look at rate structures, study those from a few other places, and make your best guess and go. I mean, that's me. I just don't see the point of going further. We pay these guys a lot of money to come up with something. They're really smart. They do this all over the country. That's my point.
We can probably go with option 3, and if it's requested by the public, modify it to ask them to come in and do a presentation.
Sorry to throw water on the coals, but
No, we need to go forward. We're not thinking about my money. We're thinking about residents' money. And that's the thing that,
right.
Are they even interested? And if they are, we can modify it next time and say, hey, come on down. We need a brief.
I think we have to have some balance with, look at some of the bigger companies that we have in town and maybe look at what they pay at another facility elsewhere in the country and get an idea so we don't scare some big businesses out of here. So, and I think we can do that in-house, I'm hoping.
Well, I'll retract my motion.
Well,
Actually, we have a second. We can't retract it.
Can't retract it, no.
That's nothing further, Mr.
you
Mayor.
can still vote on it and up and down.
Okay.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Could you repeat that motion? Sorry.
It's been a while.
The motion was to accept option number 2.
Okay.
And if after we have one meeting, if they want more, then ask them back to have another meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
That was a no.
That was weird.
Yeah, to vote against your own motion. That happens. It's legit. You can do that.
Motion failed.
You can do that. That's legit. It's just odd.
Thank you, Jim. Understood.
First in 4 years, okay?
It happens.
So do we make another motion?
Yeah, you can.
And I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm in the books.
That's all right.
So
we need a motion for option 3 then, basically, right? I move to approve option 3 as described.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve option 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Passed 4-1.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is.
Next item is consideration and approval of award of bid for the airport fuel containment facility.
Yes, Mayor and City Commission, I believe Mr. Fickens this afternoon I believe it was, sent out to you or the other day, a revised as far as copy as far as of the bid tabulation. We use a template in the engineering department, and that's why, unfortunately, you had pages 430 through 433 were really not related to this topic specific. It was part of a template that when you upload the Excel folder, you get other pages, and we should have deleted those, so I apologize for that.
Typically, I would have just fixed the problem and changed it, but because of the large size of the document, I thought
Right.
you probably had already downloaded it, and if I changed it, it would have created some problems.
Even more problems,
So,
yeah.
None of the documents changed that are in the report. They're still the same. All that I really wanted to note to you was that gave you a little bit of history in the report of why is this before you, why do we need to put this in, essentially we bid this out originally July 9th. We did not receive any bids for this project. We rebid the project out. We thought we did a rather aggressive job trying to direct solicit several contractors, and we only received one bid the second time around. And as we noted in the report, the city was put on notice back in 2012 of a potential violation as far as the need to have a containment facility because of the fueling as far as situation that's out at the airport. Part of this project, if it was approved, would be covered through a grant that Mrs. Beatty was able to secure. That would cover a portion of this project. Right now, the lighting in the Pappy project, from what we're seeing construction-wise, will be under budget. We also are seeing that the engineering work that was undertaken as part of that, likewise, will be under budget, as well as many of the maintenance items related to as far as the airport and the current budget will be under as well, because some of those were completed, particularly the joint crack sealing, we were able to complete quite a bit of those in the fall of last year. So staff's recommendation is to proceed with the award of the loan bid that was received, and should the commission approve this, it's anticipated that the project would be completed within the next 45 days. With that, I'm not going to get into the details of the report unless you had any specific questions. I'll try to answer those.
And you feel the bid was within reason?
We do. I think the concern we have is we've reached out to several local contractors. Some of them, they've done work in Junction City here, and when we put the calls in them, quite a few of them we got no response, so no return call. But the ones we did, you can see what the response was. I think we would like to see this project move forward. We're concerned a little bit about the grant that we have out there. The grant right now is approaching as far as 2 years old, and we want to be able to let KDOT, let them know that we want to use those dollars and take advantage of those, and really get this, I guess I want to call it this potential notice that was given to the city off the books.
I believe the grant was 50% up to 20,000.
Right. Yeah, it's outlined in the report. It's a little less than $20,000.
Yeah. About.
The city has to pick up as far as the local match, which is 50%. So the grant is actually going to be $9,550 is what the maximum amount that we would receive in the grant.
Yep.
I would move to approve the award of bid for RM Barilga General Contractor Incorporated, Manhattan, Kansas, in the amount of $38,220.90 for the construction of an airport fuel containment facility.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the award of bid to RM Barrel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of ordinance G 3128, a request to rezone certain property in Junction City, Kansas, located at 807 Barnhill Circle. Mr. You're out.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'll note, yeah.
Sorry, it should actually be S 3128. I think all of the documents reflect that. It's just in the agenda where I put that information in incorrectly.
S
So it's
31.
S.
Yes, it is an S ordinance. Planning Commission held a public hearing at the July meeting concerning the request to rezone the property at 807 Barn Hill. For those that are familiar with that area, that is the former Farm Bureau building that's north of 8th Street on Barn Hill Circle, which is just a little sub-street that runs north right by the high school. Property is zoned CR restricted commercial, which is the most restrictive commercial category we have. And that dates back to the time that it was actually platted and developed a number of years ago. The Farm Bureau has a contract for a local contractor, heating and air contractor, who wants to use the facility for his offices and also have some equipment storage in the building. And the original application came in for CG zoning, which would have allowed also outdoor storage. After further evaluation and discussion with the Planning Commission, they came back and recommended service commercial, or CS zoning, which is permitted under the ordinance. They can do a more restrictive zoning than what's requested, and that's what's been done here. It will allow the full operation of the business to occur. The ordinance does require screening where it abuts residential property, which would be to the east. As I noted in the staff report, if you read through that, the one concern about this category is it opens it up for a list of other users and uses that are permitted by right, which includes drinking establishments and things of that nature. However, the provisions within the ordinance that prohibits anybody from obtaining a license within 200 feet of a school building, the Farm Bureau building is measured based on what I was able to determine approximately 125 feet from the high school building. There's not going to be an alcohol license issued at that location. There was contact from neighbors that had, and quite honestly, the ladies that came in the office, that was their concern, not what was being proposed, but what could occur underneath that category. And once they were told, and they were at the public hearing of the Planning Commission, that no, this could not be a drinking establishment or a tavern or anything of that nature because they couldn't get the licenses. They had no other objections to what was going on. Planning Commission did express some concerns, and the staff report talks about as an alternative, creating the mechanism within our regulations where a special use would be able to be used rather than a rezone. And in fact, the Planning Commission at the conclusion of the hearing in July did call for a public hearing, and they are considering a text amendment at this month's meeting that will come forward with the idea to open up the opportunity to use special use permits rather than rezonings to deal with these kinds of issues. So that is moving forward as well. And quite honestly, nobody had any objections to that idea. We just got to amend the rules to be able to do that. So, however, they did feel that what was being proposed here was acceptable. There were no concerns within in the neighborhood. As I said, the two ladies that lived nearby were at the hearing, and we're supporting this. We're recommending approval to the CS zoning for this particular lot, and that will allow the Farm Bureau to be able to close the real estate deal. It'll let the business involved to be able to move in and continue to grow their business as well. So happy to answer any other questions you may have.
I just had one. When they were talking about the alcohol, and I didn't even think about it as a selling establishment, there's no issue, like if they come back in on a Friday evening, break open the coolers and just having a beer in that establishment, is that an issue, or would
No,
that be?
we're talking about obtaining a license to be able to sell alcohol.
Retail
Okay.
license.
Yeah, I got that part, but I was just wanting to ask the rest of that.
If
because I had
a private business does that on their own, that's
Okay, because
That's not an issue that we get involved with. Now, whether that opens up other liability issues for them
Okay.
in the private world, that's
Not our,
Okay.
not our issue.
I would move to approve ordinance S 3128, an ordinance granting the rezoning of the CR Restricted Commercial District to CS Service Commercial District of certain property located at 807 Barn Hill Circle, Junction City, Kansas.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance S 3128. Is there any further discussion?
None here.
Tyler?
Roll call vote. Commissioner Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Aska?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner McAllister?
Yes.
Commissioner Sands?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will have commissioner comments. Commissioner Landis.
Start with me first, okay. Hope everyone that had the opportunity today to get out and vote, voted, exercised your right and privilege. We had an EDC meeting today. We discussed some things about the stormwater rates and then also about the land bank.
Good question.
Yeah, it was good discussion. I think we kind of cleared the air about a few things. So we still have more work to do on that, which is pretty obvious tonight. So really about it, what happened there today. School is going to be back in session, so I'd encourage everyone to slow down and watch for kiddos and young drivers and make sure nobody's using their phone when they're in their car now that we have the signs up, right? So that's been it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Aska.
The only comment I'm going to make is baseball season's over. I'm very proud of the team. They are the Mid-Plains champions.
All right.
They done that in great fashion, winning 3 games in a row on a Sunday in 90-plus degree weather. Trust me, he had nothing to do with any of it. I'm very, very proud of the team.
They're fun to go to.
And one of the good things about this, it helps showcase Junction City, because you just would not believe all of the positive comments that we had from other teams, other fans that came into this community. I think the whole atmosphere there, the friendliness of the people here in Junction City changed some mindsets about folks as they came here, and I think we have 2 big events that'll probably again take place here in Junction City, and that'll be the All-Star Game, which was well attended, and then the league championship. And so, like I say, I'm very proud of those kids. A lot of heart from those players. And so, next year, folks, you need to at least come out for 1 game. You'll see some really good quality ball, some kids with some really good attitudes, and those kind of things. And then I also want to thank our host families for providing a place for a lot of our players to stay in, and I think if you talk to most of those folks, they would tell you what a positive experience that was for them, and I think most of those will be back on board of having those kids stay. Because one of the things about the kids that we have that part of our program, they all have some real positive things they want to do, and so they're good role models, particularly if you have younger kids, and sometimes where your kids will listen to them, where they won't listen to you when you're trying to give them those instructions. But I want to thank Parks and Rec, particularly Ed and Jim, for all their support to the team and in helping us get through the season and making that general manager's life a little bit easier. And particularly I want to thank all of the people of Junction City just for the support and for being out there. That's it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Commissioner McAllister.
I'd like to congratulate Cecil this year on his great job. It was a very good season, and I think the community saw how much work the general manager put into it. And I think if everybody sends a letter to the Royals organization, maybe Cecil will be moving to Kansas City.
I can take that a couple of ways.
Take it any way you want. A couple weeks ago, the chamber did agree to hire Mr. Henson to try and gain support to raise funds for the EDC. That is moving forward. I think it's old news now. It's been a couple weeks, but just reporting back on that. I would like to say that the support of Fort Riley, you know, as a community for better than 150, 170 years, Junction City has supported Fort Riley. When the cavalry came here, so did the civilians. when the 1st Infantry Division came here and then left for World War II, we were still here. The civilians were still here. When the 1st left in 1969 to go to Vietnam, we were still here. We still supported families and soldiers, and we've grown. 1st Infantry Division left in the 90s and came back. The one constant that has been going on for over 170 years is that the civilians of Junction City and the Flint Hills have supported Fort Riley. Fort Riley has had great leaders over the years. General Sullivan, General Ham, and now they've got a great leader out there, General Funk. And I would like for General Funk to take the message to the big army and say that the only constant for the last 170 years for Fort Riley has been Junction City community. Amen. We have supported that installation. We embrace that installation. They are our partner, and we are a big part of why Fort Riley is here. It's because of that 170 years of support that we've given for families and soldiers, for the resiliency and the sustainment of our warfighters. We're proud of our warfighters. We're happy they're here. We will continue to support them with everything we have, and we have for 170 years. I'm just looking for the support from Fort Riley to Junction City. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sands.
This past week, we did a ribbon cutting. I know the mayor's going to talk about this because I think he was holding the scissors. The ACT Center, it's a good-looking facility. And from personal observation, looks like they're doing pretty well. They're still in the efforts to employ at one point up to 350 people. Looking at it and seeing the folks working in there, those folks are motivated. I didn't see any attitudes. If you have an issue with cell phones, you probably won't work there very long. But they look good. They have their investment team there, the company that's actually putting in the work. Those folks are on site. They're part of the team. They're not back looking. They're actually involved. They're part of the team, and it looks pretty good. If you're still looking to be employed or you're a good worker, I tell you what, from everything I saw there, saw one of my old team there working, and she was pretty happy. So check out the ACCT. They're putting out there every month that they're looking for folks. There's a cause for concern, and we kind of got I think we got the right rating or the right alert out on our lake, and pretty shortly after that, we got folks and boats going to the lake. There were several levels of concern about when you can get in the water and what you can do in the water, and instead of going to the different phases, we went from one extreme to the exact other, and now I've seen boats heading that way, and that's what we need to do. But if you've been checking the news, you saw in Toledo, where a community of 400,000 people, this algae thing is getting pretty big. So they have no water, and they're trucking water in, and as soon as they can fix that, I think they'll probably look at some of the algae fixes around the nation, and maybe we can get, however they're going to fix that, and get our lake back on the good lake and get people out there to it. One of the things I do is I love Junction City. I stay here, I shop here, but Kansas is a great place to visit. I recommend, before everyone goes back to school, get out and visit Kansas, visit the Flint Hills. The CVB does a great job of advertising our town, but they also advertise of things that are happening around the state. If you live in Kansas and you're here to visit, get out and explore Kansas. You'll be surprised. That's how good it is. I was out at Nicodemus. I went out for their annual event, and it's just so calming and relaxing. Received a lot of comments about the land bank and some issues. Here's the thing. We've had this land sitting around for a long time. We've talked about it, and the only thing we've ever done is talk about it. And the moment we start to put a plan together, everyone wants to jump up and say, oh, it's not a good thing, it's not a good thing. Dig into what we presented, dig into the audit from 2013. It gives a lot of information to folks that have questions about Junction City. And if you read that, you'll learn a whole lot about the city finances. And you'll also learn a lot about how we can possibly do something with this land bank. The one thing we don't have, and I looked and I can't find it, so it probably isn't there, is how do we find properties, buildings, and land cataloged? It's not there. I can't tell you how many contractors we have in the town. I can't tell you how much anything we have in the town. Just kind of hunt through the phone book or word of mouth or come to the city. We'll give you the ones that are rated. But there's got to be a tool, and I think this land bank will be something. I found stuff online that helped me find a building to do a business study on, a business plan, and it worked out really good. It gave me the expenses. But that's all the time I'll take, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you guys for taking care of all the easy business.
That's what we do.
We
got your back.
Thank you. I have a notice here that Dr. Lloyd J. Parker died in Arizona. His funeral was last week. He was mayor of Junction City in 1988 and 1999. And I have a card here for us commissioners to sign to send to him. And this card was not purchased with city tax dollars.
I make a point to tell the mayor that because that is not a government purpose. So it is not paid for by tax.
Mayor Parker would have appreciated that.
Yes.
He's a retired sergeant major also.
I didn't think he was a doctor, though, was he?
Doctor of Divinity, maybe.
Ironically, the city manager's blog, just recently, that issue came up where they were asking about can they use city tax dollars to pay for flowers for one of the commissioners that was ill, and the answer was no, you cannot. You're supposed to use the money for a government purposes, and that is not a government purpose.
Yep.
So that does come up on occasion, and that's why I made a point to tell the mayor that.
We can buy coffee.
How many games did the brigade win? The hard question.
I think we were 27 and 13, something like that.
27 and 13.
Don't quote me.
Thought it was 14. But
Yeah, I think it's
It's
27, 14. Or is it 28 and 14?
yeah,
Better than the Royals.
it's in there.
I should have been keeping better track because I
Until Cecil
asked
gets
for
there.
Becky's money for every game they won.
Okay, I can get you the official count.
And so
Yeah.
the fundraising for Becky is still ongoing, and anybody who made a commitment for the games, they need to bug Cecil until we have the correct number. Either that or else just write a really big check and be happy with it. Yeah.
I think the second idea.
And that was all I had.
And I will get that information and put it on the website and give Dewey a holler and make sure he gets that out there.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be a good thing.
I don't have anything further to report. We're going to, once the decision on the land bank gets into place, I'm going to try to wrap up our finalization of our inventory of our land that we already own. Once that land bank gets into place, we'll immediately start cataloging and start with the information that the county has collected and see then from there what we need to add to it, such as maps and things. So we'll be anxiously awaiting your decisions on that. We'll move forward with what we need to do with the project across the street. And all I can say is we appreciate that you had to make some tough decisions tonight. Nothing else.
Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Tyler?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Captain?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Introduce your officer.
Raphael, come on up here.
All right.
You get to be on camera.
Oh.
Jim, switch that camera. He's on. Here, move over this way a little bit. Introduce our newest police officer, Raphael Marrero. And he started yesterday, and he'll be training with me for the next 5 weeks, and so I dragged him to the meeting tonight.
I'm happy to be
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to take by if you bring him here, he's not going to be undercover.
Not without
Not the first night.
I figured since you had him
disguise.
here, you might as well introduce him.
Mr. McCaffrey.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Gurman.
Nothing, sir.
Chief Royce. Eddie. I guess we,
I did remember something. We did get our WexGuard fleet system, and we have implemented it. The only thing that we have, except for Parks and Rec, because he was on vacation, is that we will be doing trial runs with it before we actually notify the county that we won't no longer be purchasing full fuel from them, except in emergency situations. Okay?
Very
So,
good.
new system is underway.
Move to adjourn.
Second move.
we've got a motion and a second.
Aye.
We can go home.
All righty. Thank you.